Hi, my name is Chip Dumay, UCAPP instructor and Cooperative Educational Services Executive Director, here to talk about getting the job. You've spent a lot of time and effort developing the skills and abilities of educational leadership, and here are some tips on positioning yourself well to get the job. We're going to take a look at 5 distinct parts here. One is the overall package. The second is the resume. Third is letters of reference, a powerful cover letter, and some tips for the actual interview itself. So let's take a look at the package. A lot of people look at an application package and consider it to be this um, entire mass of information that explains who I am. And we go through this list of items that are required in the package and prepare them all separately, put them together, call it a package, and send it in. I'd like to change your perspective just a little bit and suggest that the package really is a number of connected parts. Those connected parts traditionally being the resume, cover letter, and letters of reference. In this case, I've used 3 letters of reference. They should all fit together well to tell the overall story. So think of it like this: 5 separate items that all overlap. So there should be connections between the items, and there should be pieces that are specific to one item or specific to another, reiterated in one item and in another. Overall, we're looking for that centerpiece, that ABCD, where they all intersect. So let's go ahead and take a look at the next piece, which is the actual resume. So in this type of situation, there really are fundamentally 2 basic types of resume. The resume is something that is going to give the reader some insight into your background. And if getting an interview is based on the resume, then I should have a powerful resume. The 2 basic types, one chronological and one functional. A lot of people where they're in a position where they get to this point and they say, look, I'm applying for a job and it's a leadership position. How do I get a leadership position that requires experience when I have no experience in a leadership position? Without going overboard, I think that you can examine the work that you do and pull out the pieces that have the leadership qualities associated with them. And that's the functional resume. Somebody who has a little bit of experience probably would lean towards a chronological resume. I will say that most people reading a resume are looking for a couple of things. And that's why the chronological one generally works better for people, because it shows that continuity of experience. I don't have to jog around the resume to try to figure out what your work history is. Some tips for the resume. People frequently list things that they have done. This is the position that I held. This is the committee that I was on. A more powerful resume actually notes the accomplishments and results. So if you can put a specific result that is attributable to you, and keep in mind that a good interview strategy for an interviewer is to go to the resume and say, can you explain how you were responsible for this? So if you put something you're responsible for and can show with a little bit of data the actual impact that you made, it's a much stronger element on a resume. In general, lose the objective. And that's that piece at the top where I'm looking for a leadership position where I could demonstrate blah, 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 blah. That doesn't have a lot of value on the resume. You're taking up space that you could better use describing other things. For people who have other professional experience, maybe you're an adjunct professor, maybe you participate in some particular summer program, separating education experience from other professional experience allows you to maintain that chronological order without having these intermediate pieces where I'm trying to figure out if you left a job or if you held those 2 jobs simultaneously. Separating those 2, very nice for the reader. I read a lot of resumes that have what I call pedestrian responsibilities. If you're applying for a teaching position and you have indicated that in previous teaching roles you took attendance, uh, my response is, well, that's your job. And unless you took attendance in a manner that led to revolutionizing education, I'm not so sure that you want to waste space on a resume with pedestrian responsibilities. Use action verbs. So describe things that you did with clear, powerful vocabulary. When you're talking about things that you did, if you were invited or selected or chosen, you should include that. Not just gave a talk at the National Conference on Student Mental Health, but if you were invited to do that, or if you were selected from a large pool to do that, those are powerful words that indicate that it wasn't just, hey, I signed up and I gave a talk at 7-Eleven on student mental health. I get asked questions a lot about how long it should be. Should it be 1 page or 2 page? Should it be 4 pages? Well, here's the answer. 4 pages, probably not. You would have to be a relatively accomplished individual to have enough content to take up 4 pages. Even if you had powerful content for 4 pages, you really got to think about the person reading it. I don't know if they're going to get past 2. So think about what the right length is. Look at your package and your resume from the perspective of what questions somebody might ask. Frame red flags. Don't attempt to bury them, because the people reading it may not have an opportunity to have a conversation with you. So they'll see a 2-year gap in that chronological list of positions. And if you don't mention somewhere, somehow, whether it's the cover letter or a letter of reference or somewhere, that you took off those 2 years to serve children in Tibet and earn your doctorate simultaneously, whatever it could be. It leaves questions that you don't want people to fill it with their own information. That's the point. So anticipate red flags. Lastly, these 3 points here. Please don't make extra work for the person reading this by saying, hey, references available upon request. Really? So in order to get your references, I now have to ask for them? Put the references on there if you choose to include them, and put contact numbers at which I can reach them. And of course, you always should let people know that they're being used as a reference. You should politely ask them if that's okay, and if they can be called on their cell phone, just so that they're not surprised when they get a phone call. If you are listing references, and you should think about this when we get to the letters of reference, not using your immediate supervisor is not a bad thing. It is just a red flag. And so either address it or get something from your immediate supervisor. And the last thing is that we're going to talk about letters of reference next, but they really should be about a story, an experience that you had, a work experience with somebody that they can describe. So let's transition. Let's talk about letters of reference. Now, letters of reference, in general, people think of as one part of the package. I think of it as 3 interconnected parts of the package. So if you're a Marvel fan or an Iron Man fan, during one part of the movie, this image is shown. And what it is, it's actually 3 or 4 sheets of vellum or see-through paper where parts of the image were shown. And only when you overlay them and press them together do you see the overall image. And this is what I think about when I think about letters of reference. 3 independent letters that working together show a complete picture of who you are. So here are some tips. Avoid sending out an email or a request simultaneously for the 3 letters. It doesn't allow you to modify your request. Save the most flexible, best writer for last, right? So that person who you can do a little coaching with to say, hey, I've already had people talk about my amazing attendance record. You don't need 3 letters of reference that mention your amazing attendance record. So after the first one or the first 2, you can coach that last person to say, hey, if you could focus a little bit on this experience, it would be really powerful for my package. Ask the person writing it if it would be helpful to provide actual text. Every once in a while, I'll get asked for a letter and somebody will say, hey, here, I've framed a couple of paragraphs for you. Or I'll do the same if I'm looking for a letter. It really takes the pressure off of the person writing, and they can frame it however they want, but it adds some context and it gives them something to work with. Tailor it to the position. So if you got a letter of reference last year because you were applying for the head dishwasher, and now you 6 months later decide that an opportunity comes up and you can apply for the groundskeeper. Well, you really should get a letter that fashions it to that position. Um, Letters of reference are a great opportunity to address a resume gap or any other red flags or an element in the application you'd like somebody to reference. Remember, this is a package, so I read that letter, and if somebody tells a great story about why I had that gap, it's fantastic. Include the date. I get a lot of letters that just I couldn't tell whether they're from 1987 or 1997 or 2007 or 2017. Put the date on there, and ask the person that's writing it for you if they're comfortable with you updating the date, or if you want to send it back, have them revise the letter, whatever it happens to be. Getting back to the immediate supervisor, hey, unless your immediate supervisor is not there to support you, then really it's a good idea to get a letter from them. When you ask for letters, give that person writing it a clear deadline and give yourself a little bit of space. If you ask for a letter and say, hey, could you write me a letter? You're going to have some people who write it right away, and some people put it on their list, and it will always get moved down as more important work comes up. Clear deadlines are helpful. Um, the the next piece is that take a look at that, and if you know that the relationship you have with this person, some experience that you had exemplifies a really great quality of leadership, ask them to, hey, do you remember that time where we worked together on this project and blah, blah, blah? Could you write about it? The last piece is it's an opportunity for you to upward manage a little bit. This is a piece where if you're simply going into this and saying, hey, I'm going to ask you for a letter, and because you were my boss, I'm going to trust you to do all the things necessary here, then you're kind of asking somebody to read your mind. And this is a good opportunity to give them a little bit of guidance. And if it comes back and it doesn't quite fit your needs, great opportunity for you to have a conversation about how they might be able to edit it. All right, let's switch to the next piece, the cover letter. A couple of important things about the cover letter. Use your home address, use your home phone number, and use your personal email when you're giving contact information. The last thing that you want somebody to do when you're in this job search, whether your supervisor knows or not, is going ahead and calling the office, right? Or contacting you through FOIable email address. So getting back to the combination here, this is so you've already got your resume, you've already got some letters of reference that are either being developed or that you've asked. This cover letter is your opportunity to add this fifth element, this piece that rounds out the whole package. If nobody addressed a certain issue that you think is important, especially for this district, your cover letter should be specific to this district or this position. If somebody overemphasize things and you need to draw attention somewhere else, if there's a gap in your resume that hasn't been addressed and you think that it's going to be a significant hurdle for people reading your package, here's a way to nuance it into the materials. So think of it a little bit this way. Whether or not you are a Brady fan or a Patriots fan, think of where Tom Brady was when a couple of years ago he was thinking about transitioning to another team. If he were writing a cover letter kind of opens with, hey, I'm Tom Brady, I'm pretty good at football, here are some of my accomplishments. Every person reading a cover letter wants to hear a little bit about themselves. If you write a cover letter that doesn't mention the district or the position, the person reading it is going to know that right away. They're probably going to, whether you wrote it specifically for them or not, they're going to feel that you didn't because you didn't even mention them. So if Tom Brady's writing the letter, his second paragraph is, and look, you got a great offensive line, and here are some opportunities, and here's what you've done in the past, and here's what I see as challenges. Next thing is hey, here's how I fit into your organization. Here is how my specific skills will supplement the work that is done in your district. So much so that we'll win a Super Bowl. So go ahead and hire me. Last piece, the actual interview. Now, interview structures are very different, but here are some things that are relatively standard in thinking about an interview. If you think about the actual interview process itself, and this image is relevant to what I'm about to say, think about the beginning being this higher level piece of information. You know some specifics about the district and the position. You know some ways from your cover letter development of how you would be great here. And regardless of how the interview starts, you will usually have some opportunity, even if it's in the answer to the first question, to give a couple of those elements, some high level elements as a brief opening. Not a 17-minute opening that is your entire resume, but something specific to them that is high level. Here's how I fit. Here's what your priorities are and how I meet them. As you go through the question part of the interview, animate your resume. Make things that people have read in the cover letter come to life. Reference them without always saying, well, as mentioned in my cover letter. You don't have to say that ever. As mentioned in my resume, you don't have to say that ever. Just say it, but bring it to life. Bring it to life in the context of that district or position. Connect it to the people who are listening. The PTA is there, principals are there, students are there. Connect it to the people who are listening. And be forward looking. So regardless of where I am right now in my career, here's how my skills will help move you forward. And the last thing is that throughout that interview process, you've been listening as much as you've been talking. And so you probably sense that there might be some gaps. And you're assessing as you go through the interview what those gaps are. And you want to make sure that they understand who you are and how you would fit here. So an opportunity for a brief close. And I use the word brief because they're probably on a schedule and nobody wants to listen to you for 12 minutes again. Think about some of those priority areas that may be gaps. Close with, hey, and here are some ways that I can fill this position in a way that's best for this district. Ladies and gentlemen, that's it. I would encourage you to reach out and contact me if you have questions about any elements in the package. I'd be glad to coach you through doing that. Good luck.